watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
There we go, final score from Dundee, Dundee United 2, Celtic 1, and that was a total game of two halves tonight. Get your comments coming in, and I think we might have a few comments tonight, actually. So Dundee United 2, Celtic 1. Ethan, joined by Ethan and Alex to back in that 90 minutes, exciting 90 minutes. What went wrong first? I mean, obviously, Celtic dominated the first half, should have been 3-0 up by half time. Came out in the second half, collapsed. But I know the fans were getting on Nancy's back at the end of the game because everybody so. But when will the team take? When will the support start blaming the team as well? Because I mean, it was the same team that started the second half.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think the players have got to take massive responsibility. You can talk about the tactics and stuff like that, but ultimately Celtic had enough chances in that first half. Johnny Kenny especially kill that game off. And I think I said it on the show earlier when we spoke about Peter Lawwell's resignation at the end of the year, that I expected an improvement from Celtic tonight, and that being rather than a 20-30 minute performance, it would be a 45-minute performance. And you could possibly say it was based on the first half, although you need to get your goals when you're ahead, and then they let Dundee United come into the game. They get a barrage of corners in the second half and make the most of them. And it's difficult because obviously the responsibility falls on Wilfred Nancy. He's the manager. But yeah, I think the players have got to do a lot better. Johnny Kenny could have had a hat-trick on another night. Shin Yamada had a big chance in the second half when he came on. Daisuke Maeda missed possibly the worst chance of the game, a header from a couple yards out. And it just wasn't falling for. It isn't falling for Wilfred Nancy, but ultimately that's football and he's in a difficult situation. And as you said, the Celtic fans telling him to get to wherever throughout the game and at the end. So yeah, I think it was a long way back for him before this game. It's an even longer way back now. I don't think he'll lose his job after this, but yeah, it's going to be really difficult for him. And I think he might say at Celtic. I think he set loads of Celtic records. The first, Celtic manager to lose 3 games in a row to open his account as a Celtic manager. And then first time Celtic have lost 4 games in the bounce since 1978, I think it was, that they said, or something like that. So, yeah, we're in a historic phase for Celtic in such a negative manner, and it gives the opportunity to other teams in the league, especially Hearts, I would say, and obviously Rangers, who have found good form to close the gap and for Hearts to open the gap. And it probably makes Sunday even more of a bigger game. I think if Hearts win that, then I really can't see why you could make anyone else in the Scottish Premiership favourites to win the league title. If Rangers win it, then I think they're probably in the driving seat. But yeah, Celtic are miles off at the minute. The playing squad, I don't think is good enough. And as I've said multiple times, I said it after the League Cup final defeat, I think everyone at the football club probably needs to take responsibility for the 4 defeats on the bounce. And it's any easier with an on-form Aberdeen team at the weekend.
Alex, you go from watching Celtic winning the league at Tannadice last season to that performance tonight.
Yeah, it was, Celtic were good for, I think you could say, for the first half. I just want to say, first of all, a terrific finish from Daisuke Maeda. That's a really, really good goal. But Ethan said, missing a header from about 6 yards out in an open goal like that is criminal. And, there is going to be a lot of talk about Wilfred Nancy because it's inexcusable losing your first 4 games in charge of a club like Celtic. However, like you mentioned, the players, I think the players should bear a lot of responsibility, because the collapse in that second half was awful, and there's a lot of parallels. I think especially with the St Mirren game, outfought and outran. Dundee United were willing to die out there for that tonight. Once they got the goal back, you could see them getting even more up for it, and these Celtic players going into their shell, and they're clearly not up to the task. They're clearly not up to the task. Wilfred Nancy doesn't seem like he's up to the task. Many people calling for his head already. I would agree with Ethan. I don't think the board would pull the trigger on him just yet. And I can't see him, resigning either. He seems like a prideful man. I've seen some talks about resigning. He does seem, he seems like he believes in what he's trying to do. Maybe this has been really generous as well. I think we have seen glimpses. It's not been anywhere near enough, but we have seen glimpses of what could be possible. But if he doesn't start picking up results soon, it's like with Danny Rowe. You're not, Rangers aren't playing the most attractive football, but he's picking up results, and that's all all the supporters really care about at the end of the day. It's great if you're banging in 4 goals every week, and it's fantastic football. But you just need to get the results. It's a results business, and Wilfred Nancy isn't doing that right now, and the pressure's going to keep building on him. And like you said, Ethan, a really tough game to go into the weekend, and I can only see it getting worse and worse for Celtic if something doesn't change quickly.
Yeah, and it's what does he do to the playing staff to encourage them, because it seems like they're lacking the real belief to what he's doing. And obviously it goes from the first half playing some really good moments. They get the goal, should have got more. In the second half, Dundee United turn it up and they just put more intensity. They kind of suss Celtic out, and that's what we've seen across the 3 games domestically they've played. Obviously Roma's a different quality altogether, but Hearts, St Mirren and now Dundee United have all got better finishing the game than Celtic have, and I don't know if that's something that Nancy needs to address. I noticed when Dundee United really dropped back towards the end of the game and were protecting their well-deserved lead, because they absolutely dominated, especially the opening stages of the second half, and got 2 really good finishes from both Sapsford and Karetses. When they sort of moved to that low block, Celtic couldn't really break them down. They did create that big chance with Daizen Maeda, but it wasn't as easy for them. And I think that's something that some people were saying, that Wilfred Nancy's style suits a more team that's going to press you, and then you can invite pressure on and counter-attack through that. But yeah, I think Celtic, they just lack the playing squad. The 2 strikers that played tonight are just not good enough, I don't think, to be Celtic strikers. Johnny Kenny and Shin Yamada, the chances they missed on the night were ones that really should have scored, but Martin O'Neill has managed to do a job with these players. Johnny Kenny, obviously, especially with the big goals he got in the big goal he got in the semi-final. So yeah, I think I just can't. I said it earlier, I can't see a way back for Wilfred Nancy. But that being said, I would stick with him, because, as Alex said, I think you have seen small sort of bits of positiveness, but ultimately it's a crazy situation we're in, with Celtic losing 4 games in a row, and that would be unthinkable even the state the football club's been in this season. But yeah, I want to give a lot of credit to Dundee United and Jim Goodwin as well, and I think he touched on the styles of play at the start of the game, saying that he's been trying to play the same sort of formation, obviously not the exact same style of play as Wilfred Nancy, but the same formation since the start of the season. And he said that he was hoping that his team would be more experienced in it, and that's exactly how it played out. And a big win for Dundee United as well, because they came into the game obviously struggling. I think they had 1 win in their last 11, so 2 in their last 11 now, and they'll be looking to step forward and maybe push for the top 6 places.
Yeah, it's nice to see that there's Hearts fans watching tonight. I never knew there was more than one Hearts fan watching the show. So thanks, guys, as well. Subscribe to the Scottish Football Zone.
Whose name? Wait, well, people are putting in the chat that I was pronouncing a name wrong.
Yeah.
No, Ethan. It's fine. It's fine. You were pronouncing it absolutely correctly.
Who was it?
It was Wilfred Nancy. People are joking.
Oh right, okay, yeah. Well, to be fair, I originally thought that his surname was Nancy as a Frenchman, but of course he addressed that and said his name was Wilfred Nancy. So yeah, but I think that's something that we might not need to sort of gloss over anymore, because it doesn't look like we'll be saying his name for too long if it continues at this rate.
Yeah. I
hope it will be. I hope we'll be saying his name for a long time. From a selfish standpoint.
I mean, Ethan, we use a phrase in football that is in the wrong movie, and I think he is. But in saying that, part of me wants to feel a bit sorry for him, but part of me doesn't. Obviously, because he changed the system when they came in, but he's come in the middle of all this board things as well, so that didn't help.
Yeah, exactly. And like with Russell Martin come the end of his tenure, I do start to feel sorry for Nancy, because no matter what he does with his players, whether he keeps it in a 4 at the back or a 3 at the back, you can't sort of legislate for the chances Celtic missed tonight. I think they had like 17 shots or something like that, only 2 on target, nearly 3 expected goals, which is quite a lot. So yeah, it's just not falling for him. His luck's just not on his side at the minute. You even look at the Dundee United winning goal. It comes from a corner, which was from a Max Wallace, who was offside. Stuff like that. But ultimately, you can't count luck for 4 defeats in a row. It's not been good enough from Celtic, from himself. I'm sure he'll reflect on that, and from the players as well. And as we say, it doesn't get any easier with Aberdeen at the weekend. Only maybe positive thing for Celtic is that Hearts and Rangers are within touching distance, and that despite Celtic's run of 4 games without a win, I know only 2 of them came in the league, there is still time for maybe him to turn it around. Although, as I've said countless times, I can't see it happening. I think it's too difficult now, and I'll be surprised if he's not lost that dressing room. There was a few interesting changes he made to the starting 11 tonight. He obviously only had one recognised central defender, starting Austin Trusty with the 2, you would say, full-backs either side of him. And then he had a weird dynamic. He had Luke McCowan playing at left wing-back, although Luke McCowan was pretty much playing as a central midfielder. He was a sort of inverted wing-back. Then you had Yang on the other side, who was playing as a more winger, as a more traditional winger, but still a wing-back. Dyson Maeda was allowed to get wide. You've seen that for the first goal, which he done very well, as Alex touched on. So, yeah, but Celtic, I don't know where they go next. I really don't. I don't know what changes he makes to that starting 11 to get a tune out of those players to play against Aberdeen.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it earlier, Ethan, but this sets up Sunday's game between Rangers and Hearts as absolutely massive, because I think whoever comes out on top within that game has the momentum, and it's certainly going to be interesting. I mean, even though, despite that, this sounds really dismissive, and there's a lot of Hearts fans in here tonight. But despite, how bad Celtic have been this season, if this is pre-Nancy, I'd always, if Rangers were going to be in the title fight, I considered Celtic to be the main, threat. But now, based on, just off of, you can see how quickly things can change in football, and now I'm thinking, whoever wins this game on Sunday, obviously Hearts will still be top of the table, but it's, I feel like it does give them the momentum, and it could be a big shift in the Premiership title race. Obviously, I'm hoping it goes the blue way, but I'm under no illusions. I think I'm not super confident for Sunday either. I think Hearts will pose Rangers, possibly one of their biggest challenges of the season. They've already beaten them at Ibrox. So yeah, it will definitely be a very, very interesting game.
Yeah, and I think that you're right. It'll dictate maybe the momentum of the title race and who's favourites. I think if Rangers go to Tynecastle and win that game, I think they need to be considered as the favourites at the minute. If Hearts win it, then I don't know why who else you could consider as favourites if they beat Rangers and Celtic home and away. I think Celtic are probably move quickly from favourites in the league to third favourites. But we're still, as we've seen, there's been so many twists this season. We're still very, very far away from the climax to this league season, and we don't know who will be in the Celtic dugout come the end of the season. That maybe Wilfred Nancy. It looks like it's not going to be if the Celtic fans had to make the decision. But yeah, it makes Scottish football a really interesting dynamic with all the teams dropping points on a consistent basis, Celtic and Rangers especially, and obviously Hearts have dropped a few in recent weeks, but they've got back to recent weeks before they got that win over Celtic at Parkhead and then went on to beat Falkirk away. They were dropping points, so yeah, it makes it very interesting for Scottish football as a whole. And then you've obviously got teams like Dundee United and probably everyone in the Scottish Premiership smell blood for Celtic at the minute, and they'll be one of the teams. If you had to pick a team to play, I think Celtic would be right near the top of that list.
I know it would be a different show, Alex, if Celtic took their chances in the first half because, well, obviously they get beat 2-1, but if they took their chances in the first half, that the game could have been out of sight in the first half.
Yeah, and I think maybe that speaks to player quality. Ethan was talking about Johnny Kenny and Shin Yamada. Obviously, Kenny was pretty. Maybe this is being generous the way describing this. I'll say he was pretty poor, and throughout the game, Johnny Kenny, and yeah, it's a question of player quality, and it'll be interesting because they need bodies in, but who will be in the dugout to recruit those bodies? Who have Celtic already started deploying scouts to like the MLS? Looking for some of Nancy's choices, but then have they already started to set up a scouting network looking for these guys? But he could be gone within a few weeks, or the Celtic board will just fracture the relationship with the fans even more and ride it out, which I could genuinely see happening. To be totally honest,
Yeah.
So because they're just so dug in at this point, there's no turning back. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting and complex scenario.
Yeah, certainly, and I agree with you. I think if it was to get it to the point where Wilfred Nancy needs to be relieved of his duties, I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtic board failed to sort of do that. You've seen, I think I mentioned it earlier, that you've seen when Brendan Rodgers went, and whether he was shoved or he chose to resign, whatever the scenario was. Obviously, he's got a new job now in Saudi Arabia, but the statement from Dermot Desmond pretty much slammed him, which I think the question was, if you felt so strongly about the manager, then why didn't you sack him? And I think the Celtic board have been accused of that, just not doing stuff quick enough. But that being said, where else does Celtic go beyond Wilfred Nancy? Do they bring someone else in to try and implement their style in, 42 weeks before January?
Stuart Kettlewell and Tony Docherty are free.
Well, could get them in. But no, in all seriousness, you need to bring a manager in who's got 2 weeks to prepare and learn the players that fit his style, learn what kind of players he wants in January. It's very difficult. And I think, as I said, throughout the 4 games, I think I've seen moments from Celtic. It's crazy to say when they've lost 4 games on the bounce, but it's not as if there hasn't been anything. There has been signs, and maybe I am clutching at straws for Wilfred Nancy, but I think it gets to the point where...
Sorry, Ethan, I was just going to say that's the nature of, I think you get 2 types of football supporters. You get, the pessimists and the optimists. I think I fall into the pessimist category for Scotland, certainly, but, over the years, Ethan, that you've known me, I've been overly optimistic about Rangers, holding on to little things. And I think that is it's an optimistic thing, optimism to look at that. Because I would agree that, you have seen little bits, that little period in the cup final, the first half tonight. There's moments, but yeah, like you said, at the end of the day, just sitting, I can tell you from experience, sitting there and hoping and latching on to little things that you see that never come to fruition is maddening. I've done it with countless managers, Ethan. It's absolutely maddening, and unless you see a drastic improvement quickly, I think just don't make the same mistakes I did and go, well, we were all right for a half there and a thing there. If you don't see like a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 performance within like the next few games, I think you really need to look at this guy and go, is he the right man for the job? Some have already made their mind up on that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, but I think that the point is that I just think the January transfer window is so important, and if you're to bring someone in, they need to come in with short notice and address who they want, and Celtic need more quality. I think that's the most evident thing. I think if you take the manager away, regardless of who's in charge, Brendan Rodgers, Martin O'Neill and Wilfred Nancy, you've seen under all 3 managers, obviously especially Wilfred Nancy with the results, but the performances in a lot of games have been poor, and Celtic have got by, especially under Martin O'Neill, and that's a very experienced manager who's a legendary coach at Celtic. But there's nothing to suggest to me that if you get rid of Wilfred Nancy and bring someone else in, that they're going to be more successful or an instant success. Obviously, it's difficult to say when you get rid of Martin O'Neill, who won, I think, 5 games on the bounce and 7 of his 8 in charge, and some massive games in that, in Rotterdam, of course, the League Cup semi-final. But I don't think you can go back and chap on Martin O'Neill's door and say, well, till the end of the season, can you do a job for us? Because, yeah, I think the only benefit for Celtic, I said it before, the only benefit for Celtic is that they're still within touch and distance of both Hearts and Rangers. That's the only benefit I can see at the minute. And I will say, there is a slight improvement from the previous games in this game. They were closer in the game. They were leading for a lot of the game. They should have won the game. I don't think you could say that for any of the other games. Would that be fair to say, based on the chances created?
I think saying they should have won the game is a wee bit, dismissive of how good Dundee United were in the second half, but they were better, and they should have been a few goals in front in the first half. So, I guess that is a thing you could look at in a positive light. If you're trying to be positive, which I think we need more of, actually, especially in our sort of area of football, because people go into meltdown at the smallest things. You lose, obviously 4 games losing on the bounce is not a small thing, but I just mean in general, Scottish football fans go nuts over nothing. So I think, a little bit of optimism, a little bit of positivity never hurt anyone, and I guess we'll see what Wilfred Nancy can do in these sort of upcoming games. But do you Did see tonight? Obviously, I wasn't on the pre-show or the reaction show or whatever to Peter Lawwell. See for you tonight, Ethan, did that make you feel more positive going into this game despite all the faults you've seen on the pitch?
No, not really. I don't think it really changes that much. Peter Lawwell, he left a few years ago and then was reinstated sort of into a similar role. I think there's still a lot of members of the Celtic board that are still there and still part of the same regime that's been there for decades and been successful, obviously domestically, trophy-wise, but has become stale in recent years. Well, this season especially, and the lack of European progress has been remarkable. I've always touched on that, and some people will say that that's coming from an entitled supporter or whatever. But now I think Celtic are really being exposed on a domestic front, and I think maybe people are starting to understand why the Celtic fans are frustrated with what's going on. And yeah, I think Celtic are. If you had them down to still win the Scottish Premiership, then you would be very, very optimistic at the minute. And I think I'll make my judgment on who I have as favourites come Sunday evening after Hearts and Rangers play, because I think they're the two teams you need to look at the minute, because regardless of how poorly Rangers recruited in the summer transfer window, Danny Rose found a formula to win games, and that's all it takes to win a league. And they're so much further along. How long ago was Danny Rose appointed now? A couple of months ago?
Yeah, a couple of months ago.
So they're, a couple of months ahead of Celtic and Wilfred Nancy. So if you want to maybe say that Celtic will be at that
his
point.
So just about 2 months. His first game in charge was the 3-0 defeat to Brann, and that was on Thursday, the 23rd of October. And if I'm correct, that coincided with. Wait, let me just double check something.
Well, in the Europa League.
Yeah, did that coincide with
Sturm Graz, I think? Yeah, Celtic beat Sturm Graz.
Was that Martin O'Neill's first game?
No, that was Brendan Rodgers. That was Brendan Rodgers' second to last game, I think.
Right, okay. So the time period's not been that different, and it's taken, Celtic this long to get a permanent manager in. Obviously, Martin O'Neill's been on TalkSport saying that he wanted to stay, and they told him no, which, brings even more controversy. So yeah, Celtic are a good bit behind Rangers despite a similar time period, and I think it's an indictment of how the club's been handled. I mean, I watched obviously there's a very famous, probably the content creator in the Celtic space, Ryan 118, and what I like about him is I think he's journalistically trained, like us, with university and that. But he's got his platform to a point where he can, voice his opinions as a supporter, as well as having the journalistic element of it. And it was the passion from him, and just seeing how much you can see how much the Celtic board has failed him. Although he did say in his recent video that everyone needs to take responsibility now. We can't just keep blaming the board. The players have been really poor. The manager has been shocking since he's come in. So everyone needs to take responsibility. But yeah, it's a really awful situation for Celtic and these supporters who pay hundreds, if not thousands, of pounds every single season to go and watch their team are not being rewarded. And for anyone in, thinking, saying, "Oh, you're defending entitled supporters." I think we've had this discussion before. It's not entitlement when the expectation, the standards have been set to win. when it's possible. I don't think it's entitlement when it's possible. And with Celtic's resources, in comparison to the rest of the division, and they should. It's for years the cry has been not being investing enough resources to move forward and compete on a European stage. Obviously, not competing for trophies, but at least making it to a few knockout rounds and stuff like that. But they've regressed so much in such a short space of time, and the board have been accused so long of resting on their league titles and just doing enough to win the league. They've got so comfortable that it's come up and bit them. They've got so comfortable in that situation where they've actually allowed the club to regress below being comfortable in the league. So it's a really awful situation.
Yeah, and it is, and it's such a regression. I think I've told both of you this, that this year they're obviously up to 15 defeats for the calendar year. They only lost twice in 2024, which is it's absolutely staggering. They've lost more games in the space of Wilfred Nancy's tenure in charge, which is only a couple of weeks, less than that, maybe a couple of weeks on the dot, and than they did in 2024. And I think I said
2 weeks on the dot.
Yeah, and I think I said last season, at the start of last season, when Celtic started their Champions League campaign, and in the early stages of it, and maybe carrying through to the Bayern Munich tie, that was one of, if not the best Celtic team I had seen. I know they didn't come away with a treble at the end of the season. They obviously lost on penalty kicks to Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup final, but that was one of the best, if not the best, Celtic team I've seen and I've witnessed. Now I could make the case that this is the worst Celtic team I've ever witnessed, and it's such I don't know how you even contemplate going from such a time of competing against one of the best teams in Europe, one of the biggest clubs in Europe, to barely being able to get a draw in a run of 4 games, never mind victories. And it is crazy how far back Celtic have went, but they're still well in with how far there is to go in the season, how many twists we've had. I wouldn't be too surprised if Celtic somehow win the league title, but if I had to place my bets at the minute, they would be third on my chart.
Ethan, yeah. I was going to ask you, I was watching Wilfred Nancy's interview that he gave to Sky Sports there, and he's just kind of repeating the same things about, like, we did well, and we get a few shots in the second half, and you think, well, but you get beat in the game as well. You can have about 95 shots at goal and no score, and
Do you know what that reeks of? That reeks of Philippe Clement.
Yeah,
we had 28 shots in the game, but you lost 1-0 to Queen's Park at Ibrox.
Yeah, I know, but I think as well, Ethan, I'm going to put you in the spot here, right? But do you think that a lot of people's pointing their finger at the board and all that? Do you think that the man to blame was Brendan Rodgers? Because, okay, you could say that, that he'd done the dirty on Celtic for the second time, but also just to back that one up as well, like, the board shouldn't have brought him back if they knew that because if he's going to do it once, he's surely going to do it again, and he's back in football now.
Yeah, and I think you could maybe blame him, but ultimately, as you mentioned, they brought him back, and they're the ones who are in charge of the operations at the football club. And I said it earlier, I think some of Desmond's in his statement following Brendan Rodgers leaving the second time, he said something around the mark of they were getting players and offering them to Brendan Rodgers sort of thing, and he wasn't happy with them. He wasn't happy with the quality of players. Well, if you were offering him players and he didn't want to take them, and you weren't happy with what he was doing, and you felt he was regressing the playing squad, then surely you would have dismissed him and relieved him of his duties. We've seen that at plenty of clubs across Europe. I think that happened actually with Nicky Hayen, who was linked with the Celtic job, or Nicky Hayen, the Club Brugge manager, who was relieved of his duties. He wasn't happy with the playing squad that Club Brugge had. Obviously, a very luxury compared to any team in Scotland. But yeah, and that's it. I think the Celtic board are they're too inactive and they're too slow. And I think we may see that with Wilfred Nancy again, although, as I said, I don't think there's really anywhere else you can go. I think Celtic have trapped themselves in a corner when it comes to this one, with the time of the appointment and January being such an important window. One of the most important windows probably in Celtic's recent history, with the league title really being in jeopardy this season and the chance to get Champions League for one of the last times before the Scottish coefficient plummeting officially kicks in and Champions League is a distant dream for Scottish clubs. Then it's really important to stack up on the finances that come from that and add to Celtic's, which I understand already a big wallet.
Do you think? Sorry, Michael. Can I just ask Ethan something? Do you think if this trajectory continues under Wilfred Nancy, obviously, you know, he's either going to get sacked or he's going to start picking up results, because it's not possible that he's going to lose every single game. But do you think that Celtic progressing in the top 24 of the Europa League is now in major jeopardy, when before you were maybe a little bit confident?
Yeah, I think of course it is, but I think that was in jeopardy throughout the season, and I think that gets sort of you speak about it all the time, and a lot of football fans, I think we've had this conversation before, a lot of Scottish football fans, especially Celtic and Rangers fans, don't care about European football. They just want to win the league and the bread and butter and stuff like that. And I think Celtic need to just focus on winning league games, because that's the first priority in the minute. And ultimately, if they're to do anything in the last two games, they get a win against Bologna away, which would be very difficult, or is it Utrecht at home, I think it is, in the final game, to get those 10 points, which probably will be enough to get them through as a top 24 team. Then I don't see Celtic winning their first knockout European tie since 2003. I just can't imagine this team doing that. So I don't think there's really much of a priority in the European football. And yeah, I'd agree. I think it has been put in jeopardy, greater jeopardy, but I'd argue it was already in jeopardy with the Celtic playing squad. And you look at the Celtic bench today, I think it's just miles off of where it was a couple of seasons ago under Ange Postecoglou, especially some of the benches that he lined up with for some of the games was ridiculous. And now you've got a handful of youth players. You've got players who have shown that they're not good enough, players that the managers haven't used and are only really using sparingly, like Shin Yamada, who barely got a kick before tonight. So yeah, I think the Celtic squad's just miles off it, and I don't think they can even think about European football. I think they need to focus on staying in touch and distance with Hearts and Rangers while they develop an idea of the players maybe getting to grasps with what Wilfred Nancy wants to do, or removing them and getting someone else in, Martin Adila in for a second time. I think that's the only ways it's going to go here. It's going to either be Wilfred Nancy turns it around and the players get familiar with his style, they get confident, they become a united team. But I thought maybe tonight, with the way Celtic started the game and the chances they had, it was going to be one of those nights where they won comfortably and the players sort of buy into what the manager's trying to do and then they kick on from there. Obviously, it didn't play out that way. But yeah, I think it either goes one of those two ways. I think either they stay with Wilfred Nancy and give him the chance to turn it around, or they have to dismiss him and then they bring Martin O'Neill in until the end of the season and hope he can work his miracles once more to drive Celtic to a league title, or else. I think, yeah, I can't see it going anywhere else. But yeah, I'm kind of going round in circles here. But anyway, that was my long-winded answer to your question, Alex.
Alex, the like any other kind of media kind of outlet tonight, we're talking about how bad how Celtic were, and the boardroom and all that. And obviously we spent about 40 minutes. We'll come back to Celtic in a minute, but it would be remiss of us not to talk about Dundee United. I mean, a game of two halves. United wasn't in it in the first half. That was due to Celtic's pressure. But second half, Dundee United, I don't know what Goodwin said to them at half time, but they were certainly up for it in the second half.
Yeah, they were. They were, they were very, very good. They were, winning every second ball. They were running over the top of Celtic. They were winning everything in the air. Celtic had no out ball. They were pressuring them into tight spaces, winning the ball back high up the pitch. Two nice goals, especially Satford. He's very, very good. And I remember reading a thing a couple of weeks ago that Jim Goodwin was saying Satford should, really, force his way into that Australia squad for the World Cup. And, he keeps up this form. He's certainly in with a shout. I mean, I'd pick him over his countryman over at Hibs right now.
That's a hot take. I was just going to say, I think Zach Sapsford would probably start for Celtic up front in a minute. That's not ridiculous to say, is it?
I think he'd start for Rangers up front in a minute. As well, possible. Genuinely.
Yeah.
No, genuinely. Well, because Bojan injured, Danilo's useless, and don't get me started on the £8 million waste of space. But do you know what I could do with £8 million, by the way, instead of spending it on Yusuf Jermaine? Never mind. But yeah, Satsford has been very, very good. It was an excellent finish from him, and yeah, Dundee United were everywhere. Although he's not the most controlled player, and he did end up losing it. Do you know who I thought was a bit of a menace in the I've lost my train of thought in the second half. In the second half, especially, I'm just going to make sure. Fata. I was just making sure I was the right guy. Amar Fata. He does lose it quite a lot, but he is. He's a bit of a menace. He's in there. He's fighting for the ball. He's you don't know if he's going to pull something out the bag. He's erratic. So I think he was very good tonight as well. So yeah, Dundee United definitely deserved the win. Ross Graham as well, rocking a very long hairstyle for him. But I thought he was excellent on the defensive end. Winning absolutely everything in the air. He looked a threat from corners, as he always has throughout his career. So yeah, Dundee United fully deserved off their second half performance, the quick fire goals. And yeah, Celtic just looked dejected, and Dundee United, like I said earlier, they looked like they were willing to die to get the win tonight.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And you spoke about good defensive performances. Someone who definitely didn't have one was Bert Esselink, who was hooked at half time. I thought he was really, really poor in the first half. Dyson Maeda and Johnny Kenny gave him a hard time, despite the latter struggling to finish the 2 1-on-1s he had.
Dyson Maeda moving like Kyrie Irving against Bert Esselink. It was crazy.
And then Vico Seve came on, and he gets the one of the assists for one of the goals. So big change from Jim Goodwin, and obviously one that worked. Celtic's changes, on the other hand, didn't really work as well, and I didn't expect any of them to work as well.
I thought James Forrest was all right. I thought he was maybe one of the ones he put. Not like great, but Forrest, he was putting in a few good crosses and getting down the line. So I think he was okay. But I wouldn't say he made much impact.
The thing that I would say is really concerning is that I look at a lot of the Celtic players tonight, not a lot of them, but some of them, and think they had a good game. which is not good considering they get beaten, only put in probably half of a performance required. I thought Yang had another decent game. I thought Paulo Bernardo, he fell away in the second half completely, but in the first half was really solid. But McCowan done a job in the strange role he was asked to play of the inverted left wing back midfielder role. So yeah, and I think James Forrest was okay. Shin Yamada came on, and something I noticed is that he has really good movement off the ball. He made a really nice flick to Yang, and then it fell back to him, and he should have drove towards the goal, but he took the shot outside his foot and went nowhere near it. And then he had another one where he made a good run off the back of a United defence. Ralston found him, and then he kicked it off his other foot. It just really summed up the sort of quality in front of goal for both him and Johnny Kenny, because they found themselves in good positions but just couldn't finish. And I wonder who Nancy will go for up front. I think a lot of people are posing the question whether Nancy will be in charge come Sunday. I think he will be, but you never know. Celtic might pull the trigger quick and get back on the phone to Martin O'Neill and try and revive the situation and go back to a back four. So yeah, it'll be really. I'll keep an eye on that, but I don't expect any news coming out of Celtic certainly tonight. Maybe tomorrow, but I don't know. I don't expect that. Any of you expect him to be relieved these duties this early?
No.
No.
Although I wouldn't be surprised, because Celtic have given us so many twists and turns this season, from the resignation of Brendan Rodgers to the appointment of Martin O'Neill, and then the resignation of Peter Lawwell. I mean, I don't think you can rule anything out, but I don't think he will be relieved of his duties anytime soon, unless he loses to Aberdeen. Then he definitely should go.
I think as well, guys, that we use the word confidence a lot in football, right? And the more games Celtic get beat, that their confidence will go down. And saying that, Dundee and Mikey, their confidence hasn't been on the up. They've actually picked up points this season, but these 3 points tonight against Celtic will give them a lift going into Saturday's game, even.
Yeah, exactly that, and they needed that. They went on a bit of a difficult run without a win, and they smelt blood in the second half. Jim Goodwin set up his players to be aggressive, go man for man, a lot of points in that second half, and they got what they probably deserved if you're looking at it from half to half. I know I say Celtic should have won the game based on the chances they had, especially in the first half, but if you're looking at both halves and how well the teams defended and fought, then Dundee United certainly deserved, at the very least, a point. So yeah, I think it was really positive for Dundee United, and they can look to move forward now. They've got some difficult games coming up. I will say Hibs at home, who I'm not very sure about, because Hibs are always turning in strange performances when the pressure's on them to win those bigger games, and then Aberdeen away, then Livingston away. But I think I've said it, there's no easy games in this league, especially when you're Wilfred Nancy's Celtic at the minute.
Yeah, no, and by the way, Dundee United has got another difficult game on Saturday against Hibs. That's another game at home for kind of like Dundee United. But I mean, you've got to give Dundee United a lot of credit. They come out, they scored 2 brilliant goals in as well. But that Celtic performance, even that gave me of the COVID season, because as soon as a team got the equaliser, went in front, the heads just went down, and that was the same on that. In fact, that was the same with the St Mirren and Hearts game.
Yeah, exactly that. And it might be crazy to say, but I think this might have been the best performance of the Nancy reign. But yeah, I think you could maybe say it's getting slightly better for Celtic, but no, it's a funny situation. It's something you just don't expect in Scottish football, and I think this season has been one of just so many surprises. And yeah, I don't know what will happen next. Maybe Motherwell will pick up steam and they'll make a run at the title. I was looking at the league table there, and Motherwell have only got 2 defeats. Celtic have got 4, and Rangers and Hearts also less defeats. So, yeah, I think it'll be. Yeah, I don't know what you think how to say this anymore. I think it's just so wonderful. Scottish football, the gift that keeps on giving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, exactly.
The only negative is how bad we've been in Europe this season, but yeah, I think some people would certainly sacrifice that for a more competitive and entertaining league, and I think that's certainly what we're getting.
I mean,
It's all right. It's all right. We've not been too good in Europe this season because, this time next year we'll still be out in the streets celebrating after the World Cup win. So it's all right.
Yeah, no, we've got that to look forward to. Scotland.
Is that the Conor Barron anchoring the Scotland midfield, Alex?
Yeah, well, don't. I never said that, so don't put words in my mouth. But Michael, on the podcast the other day, in the comments can laugh at me, but I made a claim that Conor Barron is one of the best, if not the best, midfielder in the league right now.
Right, okay.
I think he's been brilliant. He's been absolutely everywhere. He was man of the match on Monday. He was man of the match against Kilmarnock. He's been man of the match for a while. So I think he's been very consistently good. He's been the best player in the Rangers midfield, and I didn't say. I said it would be very difficult for him to break in that Scotland lineup. I think the midfielders are locked in, but I think there's certainly a chance for him if he keeps up this form to be included in the squad. So that's just my explanation there.
No, I was only winding you up. I agree with your point as well.
I mean, even obviously, I mean, Fergus Celtic go from here, right? Because when Martin O'Neill came in, he won, 5 or 6 games or something?
I think it was 7 or 8.
7,
come the end.
7 apart from Michelin as well, right? Yeah. But weren't playing brilliant football, but still winning games, to going from that game against Dundee, that Wednesday night, to the Sunday game against Hearts, and they scattered well the first 20 minutes, and then fast forward went to the 17th of December and watching this game against Dundee United. I mean, it's a fun little game, football.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's been a dramatic fall off in a few weeks for Celtic, and I feared that it might be the case after the Hearts defeat, because then you had Roma to come, which was only going to probably put more doubt in the fans and players' mind when you come up against a top opposition. Then Stephen Robinson was never going to make it easy for Celtic in the final, like they have done with St Mirren up against Celtic recently in the last 4 games. Last 4 times Celtic have played St Mirren, Celtic have only led for 2 minutes of those games out of 360 minutes, which is quite a ridiculous stat, and shows that maybe Stephen Robinson knows how to play against Celtic, as he's shown on Sunday. And then tonight, I predicted that they would maybe get a draw, and I think on another night they easily could have done, but ultimately they didn't. It's another defeat on his record, and I think he's got a long way to go to not be down as the worst Celtic manager all time if you're talking about win rate, because he'll need to start racking up the wins, and I'll be puzzled. Not puzzled, that's not the right word. I'll be surprised if the Celtic players are all still well behind the manager and are really fighting for him come Sunday. I feel he's possibly lost the dressing room.
Just as well, another wee statistic to put it into context, in Russell Martin's entire time in charge of Rangers, he lost 6 matches. Only one of them was domestic. The rest were in European football.
Well, I think that's going to be the question going about. Who would you rather have, Wilfred Nancy or Russell Martin?
Well, Nancy's lost more games, so I'd probably have Big Russ. I knew he was good. all along.
I would still have Wilfred Nancy.
Oh.
I think I've seen more from Wilfred Nancy's team than I have from Russell Martin's.
Well, it's an impossible question. It's like, would you rather be drowned or ran over by a bus? Like, you know,
yeah, I think,
it's an
I think
impossible.
we'll be able to properly. I think we'll properly. Yeah, I know. It's just a sort of what's that? Obviously, it's a hypothetical, theoretical, hypothetical thing. But I think we'll be able to judge that proper when we get to the end of how many games Russell Martin had in charge and compare it with Wilfred Nancy. But yeah, obviously, what Russell Martin started well, a lot better than Wilfred Nancy. So yeah.
I mean, Ethan, how does it Nancy pick up his players for Sunday against Aberdeen? Because I mean, Aberdeen's in a good run of form at the moment, and obviously they beat Celtic last season in the final of the Scottish Cup.
Yeah, I really don't know how he does that. The 4 defeats in the bounce after the highs and the real unity they showed as a squad under Martin O'Neill. I think it'll be really difficult for him to pick those players up, motivate them to.
It would be so Aberdeen to lose to a Celtic side, wouldn't it?
Probably, but I think the thing is with Celtic that I know I sound like an idiot because they've lost 4 games, but on another day, if you look at it against Hearts,
no, when you start with on another day, you can't.
No. Right, okay, no. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. If Dyson Maeda scores the early goal against Hearts in the first half, maybe Celtic.
If my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bike.
Yeah, okay, but this has been the problem for Celtic all season across all 3 managers. Now the players are finding themselves in good positions. They're creating decent chances, but they're not taking them. And I don't think the Celtic are that far away. And I know that sounds crazy to say when they are lost 4 games in the bounce, but I think getting to the levels of winning some league games, I don't think they're that far away. I don't expect them to beat Aberdeen. I think maybe I'll go for a draw again or an Aberdeen win. But I wouldn't be too surprised if Celtic turn up and win. Maybe they'll do what they have done. They'll play well in the first half. Maybe they'll be 3-0 up this time, and then Aberdeen will turn up for the second half and make it 3 each or something like that. But yeah, it's entertaining regardless, and I just hope it continues. All 3 teams at the top of the Scottish Premiership taking blows. Hearts maybe less than the other 2. But they obviously went through a sticky patch of form before beating Celtic, and that's why they're not complete runaway league leaders at the minute.
There you go. That is the final scores tonight. Just in case you need reminding, because Alex says, yeah, give me that score again, please. Dundee 92, Celtic 1. Thanks to all your comments, all the comments that we could put up on the screen tonight, because there was a lot of let's just say a lot of not nice comments for our family show. But anyway, thanks to Ethan and thanks to Alex for being my minders tonight, and because I needed that tonight, guys. Thanks for that. And we'll be back tomorrow night at I think we're doing a show tomorrow night at 7:30. Reagan has got a special guest lined up, so make sure you check us out for that one. Make sure you check us out and subscribe to the Scottish Football Zone on YouTube. I know a lot of you have done that already, and check us out on the old Spotify and the old TikTok as well. And so we'll be back on Friday. Looking forward to another exciting weekend of the Premiership. And Celtic has got Aberdeen, and Hearts has got Rangers at the weekend as well. So join us live at 5 here on the Scottish Football Zone. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and yes, it wasn't a very happy night for Nancy because it was Dundee United 2, Celtic 1.
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.